This is the parasternal long axis view. It is the first view I obtain in every unstable patient in my ICU. And I am obtaining it in someone lying flat on their back, ventilated, with ECG leads across the chest and addressing exactly where I want to place the probe. The position they teach you in the echo laboratory does not exist here. So this is the exact sequence I use, the 4 things that commonly go wrong, how I correct each one, and everything I assess from this single view before moving the probe anywhere else. Probe, phased array probe, low frequency, and a small footprint because it must fit between the ribs. If you pick up the curvilinear probe that you use for the abdomen, you will not get through the intercostal space. Preset, cardiac. This matters more than most people realize. On the cardiac preset, the marker dot appears on the right side of the screen. On the abdominal preset, it flips to the left. If your image appears mirrored, this may be the reason. Marker orientation. The marker points towards the patient's right shoulder. That is the starting position. You may need to adjust it later, but begin there every time. Depth. Start at approximately 16 centimeters so that you can identify the descending aorta. Once you have obtained the view, you can reduce the depth. Beginners often set the depth too shallow and lose the landmark that solves half the problems encountered in this view. Position. In the echo laboratory, the patient is turned into the left lateral position, bringing the heart closer to the chest wall. Your ventilated ICU patient is usually supine and may not be able to move. What I do instead is place a folded sheet or a pillow beneath the right side of the back, producing approximately 15 degrees of leftward tilt. It is a small movement and the nurse can help you achieve it within a few seconds. It can change the image completely. When the patient cannot be turned at all, perhaps because of high PEEP and unstable spine or prone positioning, you may still be able to obtain this view. The image will usually be deeper and you may require more gain. I will show you such an image later because that is the type of image you will frequently encounter during ICU practice. Right, the probe is in my right hand with the marker pointing towards the patient's right shoulder. I'm starting at the left sternal border in the third intercostal space. Now watch the screen. Nothing useful yet. I can see some lung and part of a cardiac chamber. That is normal. Almost nobody obtains the perfect view with the first placement. There are 2 rules that guide what I do next. Rule 1. Slide. Do not tilt. Beginners obtain a poor image and immediately begin angling the probe. That usually makes the image worse. Lift the probe, move down by 1 intercostal space and place it back down flat. Now I am in the 4th intercostal space. This is better. I can see the left ventricle, although it is still being cut obliquely. Rule 2. Rotate until 3 structures are aligned. The left ventricular outflow tract, the mitral valve, and the descending aorta must all lie within the same imaging plane. I am rotating the probe in very small increments, approximately 5 to 10 degrees at a time. There, that is the view. Let me explain what we are seeing, moving from right to left across the screen. The aortic valve and aortic root are on the right. Below them is the left ventricular outflow tract. Then we see the anterior mitral leaflet and the posterior mitral leaflet. The left ventricle runs across the center of the image with the interventricular septum above and the posterior wall below. The right ventricular outflow tract lies at the top. The left atrium is at the bottom right, and beneath the left atrium is a small circular structure. the descending thoracic aorta. A question for you. Of everything visible on this screen, which structure will I not measure and may not even comment upon, but will never leave this view without identifying? The descending aorta, and I will show you why shortly. Now let me optimize the image. A small heel-toe movement centers the ventricle. I reduce the depth. I adjust the gain until the blood pool appears black and the myocardium appears gray rather than bright white. That is a diagnostic parasternal long axis view. 4 things commonly go wrong while obtaining this view. I encounter all 4 regularly. Let us see what each error looks like and how it can be corrected. The first error is choosing an intercostal space that is too high. The aortic root dominates the screen. The ventricle appears short and stubby because you are cutting through its base rather than along its long axis. The correction is simple. Slide down by 1 intercostal space. Do not tilt the probe downwards. Lift it from the chest, move it, and place it back down. The second error is off-axis rotation. The ventricle appears small and underfilled. The mitral valve is cut obliquely, making its leaflets appear abnormally thick. This is the error that can make a normal heart appear abnormal. Rotate the probe in small increments until the left ventricular outflow tract, mitral valve, and descending aorta are all visible within the same plane. If you cannot align all 3 structures, you may be in the wrong intercostal space. Return to the first correction and reposition the probe. The third error is a rib shadow crossing the mitral valve. It appears as a black band passing vertically through the image, usually exactly where you want to examine the valve. Again, slide rather than tilt. Moving approximately 1 centimeter in either direction will usually clear the shadow. If it does not, move up or down by 1 intercostal space. The fourth error is mistaking pleural fluid for pericardial fluid. This distinction can change management, so it must be understood properly. There is fluid behind the heart. Is it pericardial fluid or pleural fluid? They may appear similar, but the answer determines whether you are considering cardiac tamponade or a chest drain. Find the descending aorta. Pericardial fluid lies between the left atrium and the descending aorta. It passes anterior to the aorta and stops there because of the pericardial reflection. Pleural fluid lies posterior to the descending aorta and continues beyond it. A question for you. In this image, which type of fluid are we seeing? This is pleural fluid. The fluid continues behind the descending aorta. That is why I said that you should never leave this view without identifying the descending aorta. Now, what information does this view actually provide? More than most people use it for. First, left ventricular size and gross systolic function. I'm not calculating an exact ejection fraction at the bedside in every critically ill patient. I initially want to know whether the ventricle is hyperdynamic, normal, or poorly contracting. In the ICU, this 3-way assessment can change your next intervention. With sufficient experience, it can be estimated visually. Next is E-point septal separation or EPSS. This is the distance between the anterior mitral leaflet at its point of maximal opening and the interventricular septum. A widened distance suggests impaired left ventricular contraction. It takes only a few seconds to measure using M mode and may be more reproducible for a non-cardiologist than visually estimating the ejection fraction. Next is the left ventricular outflow tract diameter. Measure it here during mid-systole from inner edge to inner edge, immediately below the aortic valve. You need this measurement before calculating stroke volume or assessing fluid responsiveness using the velocity time integral. This measurement comes from the parasternal long axis view, not from the apical view. Next, assess wall thickness. A thick interventricular septum in a hypotensive patient represents a very different physiological problem from a thin septum. It may indicate a chronically hypertensive heart with impaired filling that may not tolerate the aggressive fluid administration you were considering. Next, examine the aortic root and aortic valve. Assess the root dimension and determine whether the valve is opening adequately. A dilated aortic root in the appropriate clinical context is a finding you cannot afford to miss. Next, look for a pericardial effusion and right ventricular collapse. When an effusion is present, observe the right ventricular free wall during early diastole. Diastolic collapse is an important sign of cardiac tamponade and appears before hypotension develops. Finally, look at the right ventricular outflow tract at the top of the image. If it appears enlarged relative to the left ventricle, that should prompt a detailed assessment of the right heart in the other echocardiographic views. A question for you. You have a hypotensive patient. On the parasternal long axis view, the left ventricle is small, thick-walled, and almost completely obliterates during systole. What are you going to do and what are you going to avoid? This is an underfilled hypertrophied ventricle. Give fluid cautiously and avoid immediately reaching for an inotrope. Making an already hyperdynamic, obliterating ventricle contract even more forcefully may worsen the obstruction and reduce the blood pressure further. Here is a ventilated patient lying supine in whom leftward tilt was not possible. The chamber sizes are normal. The ventricular function is good. There is no pericardial effusion and the aortic root appears normal. Within 30 seconds, I have excluded several important causes of hemodynamic instability. That is the parasternal long axis view. Get the intercostal space right. Rotate until the three structures are aligned. Find the descending aorta and assess all 7 features before moving the probe. Next in this series is the parasternal short axis view and the 5 different levels at which it can be obtained.